Hello guys, and welcome back again to another amazing episode. And as you guys already know, this is a diaspora transition episode. We speak with diaspora who decided to leave the diaspora, being UK, US, Canada, call it anywhere in the West, and then has relocated onto the continent. And today, as you guys already know, it's not filmed in Ghana, it's filmed in the Gambia. So we are taking this everywhere in Africa. We are interviewing diasporans everywhere, and the next place we are now is called the Gambia, and we are having someone special here today. She decided to leave America behind to relocate to the Gambia, and she has an amazing story. So I'm going to sit down with her, have a conversation about how it all began, why she decided to leave America behind and choose Gambia. So without further ado, Anja, no, I got the name wrong, right?
It's okay, it's okay. I have so many names, but I am known as Anja.
Anja, right?
A-N-J-A.
Anja.
AnjaAfreeca. But everyone knows me by my government name, which is Andrea.
Okay.
But in the Gambia, I'm called Angela, Adrienne, Angelina, all kind of things. So it's okay.
So I'll try to get it. Anja, right?
Anja.
Welcome on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
And to be able to greet everyone. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and then thank you for allowing us to interview you.
Of course.
To have a conversation.
Absolutely.
So people are watching you for the first time. They might not really know your background, who you are. Can you briefly introduce yourself to the people watching you for the first time?
Sure. As I said, I'm known as AnjaAfreeca. My government name is Andrea Martin. I was born in Manhattan in New York, USA. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and people always relate those areas to Biggie Smalls and Jay-Z, all the big rappers. That's how people know Brooklyn. And I was raised in those communities coming up. So growing up, my mother is, she's from the South. Her people are Gullah Geechees, which are related to the people from Sierra Leone, the Mende people. And my dad's people are from the Caribbean. They're from Barbados, Christchurch, Barbados. So I have a Caribbean and American upbringing.
Heritage,
Yes, mostly I was raised in an American household, but we lived in Caribbean communities. My dad died before I was 2 years old. So I was just raised with my mom as a single mom. And then she had my brother 2 years later. And the story goes on. I was a track star. I jumped hurdles. I did pen relays, all that kind of stuff. I went off to all-female college, Catholic college. Later, I went to law school. I studied in the UK for 6 months. I lived in the UK. I've been to Spain, Germany, Amsterdam, many places by myself. Amazing. That's when I was single. Yes, I had quite a life. And then I got married. I had my son. I have one son. He is 20 now.
Oh, wait.
Yes, his name is Ammon, A-M-M-O-N. I named him after the Egyptian sun god.
Oh,
I didn't really know why, but I was pulled to let him have a letter A name. And when I'm going to fast forward now. We're going to skip. Before I had my son, though, when I got to age 26, my 26th birthday present to myself was to go to Senegal. I was walking one day in Manhattan and I'm hearing this African drumming. And I'm just like, where's this coming from? I was coming from work and I followed it. It was like somebody was cooking good food and you follow the smell. This how this sound was pulling me. And I followed this sound, and when I got it was in some tenement apartment building, and someone had taken all the walls out of an apartment and they had a dance studio. And I started coming back every week. I was taking dance classes. And then they finally put up that they were having a trip to Africa. Wow. And I remember thinking, Africa is so expensive. How am I going to go? But they had this payment plan where you could come and bring $300 once a week every time you get paid until you paid up your trip. And I said, that's what I'm going to do for my 26th birthday. That's what I'm going to Africa. Everybody thought I was crazy. Why you just don't have a party? What you going to Africa for? What do they have there that they don't have here? I couldn't hear them. All I could hear was that I was supposed to be in Africa.
Wow.
So I went. I was there for 30 days. We stayed in Malachi Village, which is outside of Dakar. My aunt was a linguistics professor, one of my cousins, and she connected me to some of her contacts on ground. So if anything happened, I knew I had some place to go. And of course, something happened. There was a fire. Our huts caught fire. Instead of some of the people coming to help, they started raiding, stealing people's passports.
Wow.
It was bad. It was bad, bad. And the leader of the trip was nowhere to be found.
What?
Oh, yeah, he was a scammer from the States. So
Wow.
he took people's money and he was gone. And there was no way to contact him or anything. Thank goodness I had the connections. My people that I contacted were, they ran the ports in Senegal. The man was a big manager at the ports. I called him. His family welcomed me and my people to their home. They fed us so much food. So much food, it was crazy. I remember passing out because I ate so much food, right? But they just let us know we could be safe. And when we left, they helped us get all of our instruments back, no charge.
Wow.
Everything. It was beautiful.
Wow.
So, you know, you will have things happen on the continent and you don't even realize that someone's always going to be there. And when they look out for you, they really take you into their home and it's really like family. So the one thing that happened in Senegal that I blew off, because I didn't know what it meant at the time, we were sleeping on a beach one night and I remember looking up at the sky. All the drummers was on one side and my Japanese girlfriend was dating one of the drummers. So I'm like, how you gonna sleep on a beach with people you don't know? I never heard of this.
Yeah.
She was over there with her friends and I was kind of by the water. And I remember looking at the sky and I saw a shooting star and I had never seen a shooting star before in
Really?
the States. That's what we call them, shooting stars.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and when I went to tell them, look at this shooting star, I couldn't move. Something
Really?
just froze my tongue and something was pushing down on my chest. And all I could hear was, do you believe now? That's all I heard because I came to Africa like, I don't believe in God. What kind of God takes a 2-year-old father from her? You know, what kind of God makes a woman suffer, this kind of thing? But when that happened, this pressure on my chest, all I could hear was, do you believe now? And I was like,
Whoa.
I don't know if I believe in a blonde-haired, blue-eyed person, but I sure believe that there's something bigger than me now. I believe this, right? So I came back to the States, and, you know, of course I told my friends, they was like, what are you talking about? We were up all night and nobody saw this but me. So I never mentioned it again.
Wow.
Many years ago.
Wow.
So here we go, fast forward, pandemic. I call it the pandemic. They was trying to force everybody to take the vaccine. I was like, no. Because what they were giving out in wealthy communities as the vaccine, they were not giving out in poor communities. They were not giving out in communities where we lived at. And I was following it and I said, no, they never gave us anything for free. Anytime they come into your house and offering you something, you better be like, no. Have you ever heard of Tuskegee?
No.
Tuskegee Institute is in Alabama. They took a bunch of military black men and they injected them with STDs.
Really?
That's how they did their testing. So when I think of those kind of trials and the history that we have with pharmaceuticals, I don't trust them. I don't trust vaccines. I don't do hospitals. I'm not into any of that. So I refused. And so at that time, I was feeling a fight or flight thing. And I said, I cannot fight by myself, but I can take my son and I can leave. And so I went to your country first.
Really?
I went to Ghana.
Wow.
went to
What
Ghana.
year was that?
This was 2020,
2020.
at the height of COVID.
COVID.
So I must have took about 10 COVID tests in my travels.
Wow.
Because I had to take tests to leave the States. And when I say 10, I'm including my son, right? So I had to take a test to leave the States to be able to fly. Then I had to take a test when I arrived in Ghana. When I left Ghana, I had to take another test.
Wow.
When I get to Sierra Leone, I have to take another test. When I leave Sierra Leone to get to Gambia, so every place you enter and you exit, so I took over $1,000 worth of COVID tests.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I can tell you about all the tests. I've
Yeah.
been poked, prodded, Q-tips up the nose, all of it, all of it.
Wow. And then you try to escape that because of the pressure that was being mounted on people in America
Yeah.
to take the jab.
Yes.
And that kind of influenced you to make your move to the continent, you would say.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When I was in the States, because, you know, it was more spiritual, but again, I didn't know what was happening. I mentioned to you previously that I was sleeping and I would hear this knocking, like literally. 3 times, every time. And I would jump out my sleep, and who was knocking on my door at this time of night? I go look on my son, he's asleep. I go down to my house door, I look outside, nothing.
Nobody.
And I'm like, nobody could knock the door and run. It's not like children playing because it's happening in the middle of the night. So finally, after about a month, I started to Google it. You know, I looked it up, and it kept saying things like, you know, the religious sayings will say, oh, it's the devil knocking at your door. It's death. Don't answer. But I wasn't scared. And I started to say, you know what? I don't believe this. So I looked up the spiritual meaning. And when I looked up the spiritual meaning, it said someone is trying to communicate with you. And I said, okay, maybe there's a message I'm supposed to have. This could be important. And I would hate to think that I'm disrespecting my ancestors. So I said, whoever this is, finally, when it happened again, I kept my eyes closed and I stayed calm. And I said, whoever this is, please walk in the light. Be of the Creator's hand. And we know we have bad ancestors. So I'm like, please be a good ancestor reaching out. You know, so once I did that, I started to have dreams. And I never had dreams prior to that.
Really?
Oh, yes. I told you my dad passed when I was before I was 2 years old. So from 2 until like 14, he was still communicating with me. I would talk to him. My mother would come in the room. I'm having conversations with him. I'm playing with him. I'm talking to him. By the time I reach 14 now, she's getting a little concerned because now she's saying he's coming to her in her dreams. And she's afraid. Because she believes when the dead come to you and tell you come with them, it's bad. You know? I didn't really understand what was going on with her. I thought what was happening with me was normal. So she talked to her Caribbean friends, and they tell her, try to get the church to come and pray at your house. Like do a type of excision, you know, what they call it, exorcism type thing. And she went to the Jehovah's Witnesses, they wouldn't come. She went to the Baptists, the Christians, the Catholics, nobody would come to the house to help this single woman, right?
Wow.
So finally, her Caribbean friends who she worked at the hospital with told her, go to the OB man on the corner. You know, in Brooklyn, you have a corner shop, and there's a man that sells candles and have potions and whatever. He tell you burn the white candle for money, all this kind of stuff. So she goes to the OB man, and he tells her that it's me. I am the connection that keeps my father here, bothering her in her dreams. So he told her to bring me to him and bring everything that my father ever gave. And so they burned all the things that my father gave, Bible, kinds of stuff. And I was really upset because I didn't understand what was going on, and I had to do a spiritual bath. And he had a big basin, and they're throwing all kind of, you know, you're naked in this basin, they're throwing things, potion and whatever, praying over you. And I just remembered feeling violated, like she allowed someone to offend me in some way, like molest me almost. He never touched me, but it just felt like a violation. But after that, I wasn't the same. I didn't dream. I didn't have dreams until this knock-in. That's when the dreams. So once I said come in, the dreams start flooding in like it was making up for all those years. And the very first dream I had was a very tall Egyptian woman. She must have been like 10 feet tall. And she's walking with 2, I said dogs with cat faces because I couldn't remember the name. But as soon as I Googled it, the Sphinx came up. And I said, yeah, that's what I saw in my dream. And once I saw that, the dream started to flood. All like making up for years of things. And so right before I was leaving for the Gambia, I had a dream that my plane crashed.
What?
Yes, that almost like the World Trade Center. The plane went into the building and it was sliding through and all the ceiling was crumbling, all the walls was crumbling. And I just remember it was a plane full of people, but yet I was sitting next to the pilot, so I thought I was in a helicopter. But when I looked back, it was rows and rows of people, all different races, all different. And I remember the pilot being a white man I was sitting next to. And I remember closing my eyes and saying, ancestors, if you brought me this far for me to die, let me die on the continent. I remember saying that. Like I was scared, but I was like, if this is what's meant to be, at least I'm going home. And I remember when I opened my eyes, we was on green, everything was green, green pastures, everybody was hugging, thankful, you know, kissing the ground, all this kind of stuff. And when the pilot hugged me, he was hot, like his body was hot. And I remember backing away from him, and I just went and hugged everybody else. So the next morning now I leave for Gambia.
Wow.
Right? I get to the airport, I'm in Brussels, and I'm on the wrong side of the airport, but I don't know it. And it's a huge airport. I know you do a lot of traveling, so you will know Brussels airport is huge. So I'm sitting there, no one else is around, but I'm hours early, so I'm not worried. And this pilot comes, and he's very nicely dressed, but he have a very feminine way with him, you know? And for me, you know, when I see people that are of, you know, other gender preferences, homosexual men, I call them flaming because they're hot. Like, that's just a term we use. Some of my brothers are, that I call my brothers, they live this life, you know? So I recognize them right away. So I'm sitting there and he starts, girl, I like your shoes. I like it. He's complimenting my outfit. And finally he says, why are you sitting here? I said, I'm going to the Gambia. He says, I am too, but this is a cargo flight. He says, you are on the wrong side of the airport. He said, I really wish you were coming because you seem so nice. I would love to keep talking to you. I said, let me get up and go, you know. And he greeted me, gave me such a nice goodbye. And as I'm walking away, I'm like, that's my dream. In my dream, the man was hot because I call gay men flaming hot. And there was the pilot as my guide to tell me, you're not supposed to be here. You're going to miss your plane. You need to be on the other side of the airport.
Wow.
So I'm fine. I go to the other side of the airport. I board my first flight, and there's turbulence, and people are holding on. They are afraid. And I'm just sitting there
Chilling.
calm, you know. I'm not afraid. I board the next flight, and there's turbulence again, and people are scared, and I'm sitting there calm. I board the flight from Senegal to Gambia, and there's turbulence. And I'm calm because I had this dream that prepared me. So little did I know that that was just going to be the beginning. Because then I finally come to Gambia and all kind of things start to happen. I start doing meditation. And when I'm doing my meditation, I'm seeing people's faces. I'm seeing aliens.
Really?
I'm seeing extraterrestrial beings, angels, ancient people that I'm thinking
Really?
I don't have any connection to this.
Describe what you see.
When I say aliens, I'm talking people like E.T. This type of big eyes, holes where the nose would be, elongated heads. Like that's what I'm seeing.
Wow.
And the thing, and I've sketched about it. It's in all of my artwork because I'm like, this is something you can't even really describe to people. But I wasn't afraid. So I'm thinking, if we are spiritual beings, right? If we believe that we are spiritual beings inside of a shell, spirit never dies. Is it possible that at some point in our lives we have had connections to these beings from other places? I think it is very arrogant for us to believe that we are the only ones existing. I think there are people in other worlds thinking you all are so small and so silly.
Yes.
That you think it's all about you, but this is a human concept. So that is what I see in my meditations. And then I started to see things like people that I didn't recognize. And so I'm like, who is this man? I don't know this individual. Maybe it's an ancestor, uncle, someone I don't know. And I would go out to the road, and sure enough, I would see that person would come and offer me a ride.
Wow.
And take me exactly to where I needed to go.
So you are living ahead of time within...
And it all happens here. And it has to do with the food, the connection to nature, the connection to people. You know, I always say, there's a movie called 6 Degrees of Separation. You know, how we are all connected in some way. Even in meeting you.
Yes.
You know, I met you through a beautiful sister that has a restaurant here.
Yes.
Mosiah's,
Yes.
Motu's, you know.
Yes.
And this sister, I was watching her before I came to the Gambia. So once I came, her restaurant was one of the first places I ate when I came from the plane with my son to the Gambia. So she was the first taste of butterfish that I had in the Gambia. Wow. And it was amazing. And whenever people come, I always go, you're looking for Jamaican food, you gotta go check this sister. Even when I was selling desserts at my store, I would refer the brother to her. You know, maybe she would try your desserts. She's very open to do like poetry and have talent at her place. So we always have a connection and we always have love for each other. We collaborate, you know, and that's all I ever want to do is to show like your journey is not just about you. Your journey is about all the people along the way that you get lessons from. So how was I to know that I would see her yesterday evening at a jazz show for an American couple, right?
Yeah.
And she would introduce me to you. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you got to meet this sister right here.
Yes.
And this is how it works. You know, we look out for each other because, you know, everyone's story is so unique.
Yes.
And your story will help someone else understand what they are experiencing. So one of the things I love, like I said, about this journey was that whole piece about spiritual abilities that I always had that I never knew what they meant. I thought everyone did this. I thought everybody get messages through their dreams. I thought everybody didn't dream. Right? Because it wasn't until I started dreaming that I realized this is a way that our ancestors communicate with us.
Right.
And so I encourage people to write down what you are dreaming, because you will find when you look back 5 months later, 6 months later, that this thing you dreamed about is happening and you wasn't paying attention. But the information was already given to you. I call it uploads because sometimes you will feel like a computer glitching, like you will feel it happening to you, you know? And so I'm told who I'm going to meet. I'm given predictions on what's going to happen. Even now, I'm doing water divination. If I look at the top of the river water, I can see forms and shapes in the water. I was on the river Gambia at the Denton Bridge, and when I looked at the side of the water, I could see bodies laying face down in the water.
Really?
So I know that there's a story there. I also I was called to go to Stone Circle. It was real strong. You need to go to Stone Circle in Watsu. And I went there and I did a meditation under a tree, and a frequency set off. So these are the monolithic structures known as the Stone Circle. As you can see, some of them are down. They may have fallen down over time. But these are the structures. And I'm sure everyone has a different experience here. So I can only speak on my experience thus far. When I look at these stone pieces, I see faces. I don't know what other people see. So I don't know if they are like all the souls that have come through here, all of the centuries of souls, but many of them have their mouths open, which to me represents a feeling of trapped or a surprise. So I walked through all of them and blessed them all with some light energy, because as you know, that's what I do. I transform the negative to the positive. And in that experience, this one tree was calling for me to do a meditation, and I did a meditation under that tree, and I started to hear this very high-pitched sound, and it just increased. And it got louder and louder. And it was just high pitched, like a frequency, like an electromagnetic field. So I am convinced that not only is this a place where souls have been put to rest, but I believe these structures serve as some sort of communication device. Almost like a radio frequency. It was so loud. So of course, I ask for the ancestors' blessing as I'm walking through these sacred grounds. But like I said, I see faces. I can't speak for what anybody else. And everybody was like, what? What is that? I said, I don't know. All I know is it wasn't doing this before I meditated. But I told the people that came, because when I got out my car for Wasu, the brother from Choice FM and his mentor from the UK, both radio people, was standing there when I got out the car. I said, what is this? I'm with a guy from City Limits Radio. He's also from the UK. So we have UK, Gambia, and USA, and we're all radio people, you know, content people. It's not a coincidence that we all bumping into each other at Stone Circle and that I set off a frequency. So that led me to believe that Stone Circle is a communication, is an ancient, sacred communication device.
Wow.
All of those stones around the Gambia River, I believe, activate each other. I believe the sound vibrates through the water, like oscillating sound, and sets off those stones, and there's a communication.
Wow. Well, now, what made you so tapped in, you know, your journey?
You know, you cannot deny what is being presented to you. You could act like you don't see it, but it's going to keep showing up in your face. So the very first thing that happened to me here, something was telling me, be in nature. You need to be outside. Because I was one of them people, I don't like bugs. I don't do camping. I'm not interested in that. Sure enough, I'm walking on the beach one day, and I look up over the trees, and I see these green bubbles over the trees. And I'm like, what is that? Am I seeing the trees breathing? And then I realized you're seeing auras.
What is that?
Aura.
Okay, yeah.
Like the light around people, I can see that. So I see it around, I started to see it just around the trees. Then I started to see it around birds. Then I started to see it around people. And the color would always be like green or purple.
Wow.
And so that's when I could look at the water and I would see the green dots, and I know that's where the fish are.
Really?
It's deep. I'm telling you.
That's a superpower.
What? Yeah, it's deep. And sometimes, even looking at night, I started to see it around stars. This brighter light aura around the colors. So I started doing artwork because I'm like, I can't explain it. And I hadn't painted in like 10 years. I started painting, and my artwork has gone to a whole nother level now. It really has.
You sell some of the artworks?
I haven't sold them yet.
Really?
Right now, I just have a huge collection to present to people. I do have it on my YouTube channels to show people. And I assume one day I will be selling them. But right now, it is to get the message to people that you have this ability too.
Yeah.
You're just not open to it. You know, when I started this journey and I started to tell Spirit, I'm open for communication from positive, high vibration things, I also said, thank you for the vision. You know, thank you. Let me see what you need me to see and to relate to our people. Because we all have this. We just not tapped in. We keep looking outside of ourselves. We keep looking to TV and all these things that are not productive. Like what you're doing is so important because you're allowing people to see that when you leave those distractions and you get away from the superficial and you really focus on what's important, you go within. You can pray. Praying is good. But when you pray, you talk. But when you meditate, you listen. That gives God the time to tell you everything you've been praying for.
That's deep.
Right? That is what I've learned to do, to sit in silence. So I do noise fast. I go off social media. I don't. And when I shut down, when I tell you the answers are so profound, you will have things coming from 20 years ago. You'd be like, why are you bringing up that Tootsie Roll I ate when I was 5? It will bring up things and you realize it's because you didn't want to share. Did you work that out? Are you still not sharing? Are you not sharing things of your life that you should be sharing with people? Are you over the hurtful things? So that's the kind of things that this journey will bring. It will make you do that. They call it mirror work or shadow work. Dealing with that dark side of you that you're like, oh, I'm over that breakup. I'm good. You say you're over it, but you're still holding that hurt into your next relationship. You can't just put things behind you. You have to walk through the pain because in that pain are lessons.
I like that. Like, will you say that your spirituality have enhanced since you moved to the continent of Africa?
Absolutely. You couldn't have told me I was spiritual. In the States, I thought I was doing my job. You know, I work with victims of sex abuse. I was an attorney. I was a social worker. I was a therapist. I was a fitness trainer. You know, I was a track star. It was all these things, but I never knew that all of that was just to prepare me for this junction in my journey.
Wow.
And here I come full circle. I come to Gambia, and what am I doing? I'm training law students. I'm working with a magistrate. I'm helping an attorney that does customary law translate so into English, so that people will understand the customary laws along with the laws that were imposed on us by colonizers.
Wow.
Because both of them matter here. You don't have that in the States. You have one law, and it usually doesn't work for us. But here, customary laws can sometimes supersede laws from Britain, from the UK, wherever. So that is important to know, and our young people need to know. But if it's not translated, it's not going to be passed on. There are no books for it. So I'm like, how do you keep these traditions alive?
Yeah.
So that is my job, to remind people this is part of it. And that's why I say I'm a spiritual coach.
Yes.
Because I coach people into their greatness. I tell people, you may not see your greatness, but I feel it. I feel it and I see it, you know, and don't underestimate what you do.
I like that. And then you have a message for people. I know someone might be where you were before you moved to the continent, having dreams about the continent. You know, I had people who like had a vision, but then they were trying to be stubborn. And then the more they kept staying, things were going back for them.
Spirit will do that for you. Spirit will close doors. Every time you go to a door that you don't belong at, it's going to keep that door closed. You will keep knocking, you will kick it, you might even get it cracked open a little bit, but it's going to close. Because Spirit is like, you're not walking in your purpose. And until you walk in your purpose, you're going to continue to struggle. There are times, sometimes, I remember having people steal. You know, people like to come to the continent and talk about all the bad things. But they know they've had these things happen in the States by their own family members. So you come in here and it happened. This is life. These things happen. So I've had people lie, I've had people steal, I've had people be dishonest. But I've met more people who did amazing things. I've forged amazing friendships that discount all of that, right? And every time I walked in my purpose, it didn't matter what people took, because I realized that wasn't part of my purpose. That's why it's gone. So the blessings that came to cover what was taken was tenfold. You know, I had a shop in Gambia, and I told you I sold things from the States. I had books, food, clothes, sneakers, t-shirt. All of my customers were men. I bought a bunch of ladies stuff. I didn't think men would be shopping, because I didn't realize that men are the authority here. They are doing the shopping for their families. So that was something I had to learn, and my first lesson was with that. The men control the money. The women might make the money, but it's the husband who's going to be the one about what is purchased.
What do you think of it? That system, what do you think of it? Compared to what we have in the US and the UK?
You know, I have to say I respect it. It took a while for me to get used to men helping me do things, because that is part of our issue in the States. We live in our divine masculine and divine feminine. You are a female, but you are very in touch with your masculine side, because you may not have a proper partner. You may have been fatherless like me. You know, luckily my stepdad did come into my life when I was 14, so I didn't have a male role model, but he had his own struggles and challenges being in that system. So living in your divine masculine, you struggle when men try to do you. Like, I don't need you to open a door for me. I don't need you to carry a bag. So when men came and wanted to carry my bag, I'm like, is he going to run off with my bag? Why is he asking for my bag? And I realized men actually want to help you. They will assist you, and it's okay. So learning how to embrace that feminine side and be like, you don't have to do everything. There's someone stronger than you that wants to step into that role. That is a beautiful thing to discover when you can release to it, when you can submit. See, we take submission as meaning inferior, but sometimes it just means stay in your lane, and it's okay. It's okay to feel protected, and I feel that from all of my brothers. You know, even we are in a space now that this brother is very dear to me. We always look out for each other. I always bring him business. I send my friends to him, you know, but it's because I truly see him as my brother.
That's beautiful. You've built a whole family for yourself down here in Africa. And that is very beautiful. You're well connected. You know, what would be an advice for someone who is trying to embark on this journey to Africa? 3 best advice, things they need to watch out for, what they need to, you know, 3 best advice for people trying.
Well, I would definitely say that you need to have connections on the ground. Get your feet on the ground, have connections on the ground, and leave your Western trauma behind.
Let's talk on that. Let's speak a little bit more on that.
You know, people pack their trauma in their suitcases and they come to the continent. And they come with that sense of entitlement. They want to tell people what to do, and what they're doing is not enough, and they're so poor, they want to give charity. Did they say they needed your help? Did you ask them what they wanted help with? You know, we have this way of, you know, thinking that we know better. Or we come from a place from our hearts, but we don't realize that a lot of that is the conditioning. Telling us that something is less than, you know, and I realized that having less was so freeing, because when I had to sell my things to come here, I never felt so good.
You sold everything you had?
Sold everything. I'm like, I even threw some stuff away. I was like, why am what am I doing with all these distractions? Because that's all it is. All the shoes, all the paintings, all the bags, it's all distractions to keep you on the rat wheel. If you keep turning that rat wheel, you get that new bag. If you keep turning that rat wheel, you might get a vacation. But somehow my vacations did not include Africa.
Why do you think that is?
Because they make it seem like it's something so unreachable, so unattainable. You can't obtain it in any way. You won't be able to afford it. They don't like you anyway, so what are you going there for? They're all this propaganda. And that's why I tell people, get your feet on the ground. You know, see for yourself, because when you come, and my son was able to have that experience. You know, we did Ghana, we did Sierra Leone, and we came to the Gambia. And he was like, Mom, I know you told me all my life that Africa wasn't what I thought it was, but it's not till I came. And he's riding four-wheelers down the beach, and he's dancing with other young people, and they exchanging business ideas, and he's realizing how much they have in common. You know, that he realizes all the things he took for granted. So a lot of his things he left when we was going back, because he's like, I can't believe how people do with so little and they are so happy. So I was glad to give that to him as he was turning, you know, 19, because we celebrated his birthday coming here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you talking about happiness, we're on a smiling coast of Africa.
Yes.
How are you enjoying your stay in the Gambia?
I love it. I love it. There are things that just bring me so much joy, like the birds will wake me in the morning to feed them. If I don't put out their breadcrumbs in time, oh, honey, they tapping on the glass. They come in with the posse. It's like 6 of them. I'm like, oh, they're not going to let me sleep this morning. So the birds have really big spiritual messages for me. Sometimes I would be walking and I'm not quite sure where I am, and I just look at the birds, and they will all come to the space where I'm supposed to make my turn.
Really?
And when I make the turn, I'm like, okay, I remember where I am.
Wow.
So I just listen, and I pay attention, and I can listen. Like one day I went to turntable. I was new to the Gambia, and I was trying to get to Senegambia, and it was a brother from the Gambia Bird Watchers Association, but I didn't know. He came by like a big truck, and he's like, my sister, do you need a ride? And I looked at him, I said, well, he don't look too dangerous, so I guess I'll take a ride. I got in the truck with him, and he says, oh, I am president of the Gambia Bird Watchers. I said, stop playing. I was just saying, I need to know what kind of birds are coming to my windows, and then I'll meet you. And I end up getting a tour from him, and I send people to him. I've written grants for the Bird Watchers Association. I go out to his family in Karoli, I think it's called. I go out there, out past Burkama for Tabaski. I spend time with his family. I know his daughters. Like, we're all good friends. They have kind of adopted me. Just from one little contact from some birds, you know?
So, if you were in America, would you have met that bird?
No, I'd be like, why is this dirty? No, we call the pigeons flying rats. In the States. We call them flying rats because people say, oh, they're so dirty. But I'm going to tell you, that's something else that happened in the States. Right before I came, I was in my car, and I felt like I didn't know where I was going that day, because it was during the pandemic. And when you go out, you have to have one focus. So I was there, and I said, I don't know what I'm doing today. Let me pull over and gather myself. I feel like I'm all over the place. So I sat there, and this bird came and flew on my side view mirror. And I looked at the bird, and the bird looked me right in my face. And I said, okay, beautiful. I'm going to slow down, you know. And the bird was gray and brown. That was all I remembered. And when it flew away, it flew to the back of a truck, and there was 2 of them. And then they flew off together, and I couldn't see where they went after that. And I was like, that had to be a message. So when I came back in the house, I looked up the bird, and it said it was a mourning dove. I never saw this bird before in the States. I come to the Gambia, and there are mourning doves everywhere. These are the kind of things you have to pay attention to. It is not a coincidence when a chicken crosses your path. It's not a coincidence when you see a white cat. It's not a coincidence. You need to look up the spiritual meanings of these things.
What about black goats?
Black goats too, or anything like that. Black goats, you want to look at the color, the number, because sometimes you will see repetitive numbers and people don't, those are angel numbers. You want, there are messages. Our ancestors cannot communicate with us directly, but they will send you things indirectly. They use the animals, they use the weather, they use water, they use foods. You know, I went to visit some houses, and every place I went, there was a noni tree.
Noni. Okay.
Noni.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm supposed to take this noni because they want me to drink the juice from this noni. And then I looked up the healing properties of noni. It's for cancers, for high blood pressures, for UTIs, feminine problems, anything you can think of. So why would they take me to houses that they don't want me to live in? Because it wasn't about the houses, it was about those noni trees. So I made sure I took some noni when I left.
That's beautiful. Now, this is spirituality, African spirituality.
Yes.
We've suffered from a lot of propaganda that paints this beautiful spirituality to be voodoo.
Yes.
Why do you think they do what they do?
Well, let's say this, voodoo is not a bad word. That's the part, that's how they got us twisted up, right? Marabou, voodoo, hoodoo. African spirituality, these are not negative things. There are negative people that get hold of these things. But these are our original practices. So when you have traditional medicine, traditional herbs, there are herbs everywhere in Gambia, but yet people will run to the pharmacy because they don't even know how to identify their own herbs on their land. I take a traditional medicine class with Dr. Salyu Pui. He teaches all the diasporans and whoever wants to learn about all the herbal plants.
That's beautiful.
It's so important because when I take my spiritual baths, I am using herbs from the Gambia. You know, you see people spray things before they start their business. That is an herb that they have in that water that they know for prosperity that they're using. But we've been taught by religion to stay away from these things, that this is bad, it is negative. It's not, because if it was, religion would not have pulled from these things to establish their religions. They pulled the important parts and twisted it enough so that they can maintain control of it and have us fooled, bamboozled us into thinking that these things are negative. And I believed it too. I believed that when I saw a black cat, it was bad, because everything black is bad, right? This is what we are taught, but we know black is beautiful and we come in all shades and all things come from darkness. But they're not going to tell us that.
True.
So we have to do the research. We are responsible for that knowledge. And our ancestors just want us to tap in. Like I see people falling out when somebody died, and I remember doing that. But now when people pass, I go straight to the water. Because the water is a carrier of messages. We know how much history is in these waters. So I sit by the ocean and I sit and I talk to their spirit, because the shell is gone. The spirit, it never dies. We know the spirit never dies. The Creator has told us that. And I don't care what religion you cover, that is a common concept.
True.
So I want to know where you're going next, because I know your journey is not over. That shell you had, it had its time, no matter how long, how short. And when you look at it like that, you find when that person's gone, you're probably even more connected to them. You should be talking to them, but instead we mourn. Right? That's why we don't like to say good morning, because we know we should be saying grand rising, grand ascension, greetings. We're not mourning our dead. We need to be celebrating their life because they are still here.
I like that. Now, what do we have to do to be able to begin to see these things as beautiful, as sacred, and must be respected, which is our
meditation?
Okay.
I recommend meditation. If you don't start with anything else, that is the basic. I remember I couldn't meditate for 2 minutes. I said, how people sit still this long? I can't do it. My mind is on. They call it monkey brain. Your mind is jumping, racing. You can't settle your thoughts. So I started with 2 minutes. Then I went to 5 minutes. Then I went to 7. But when I got to 15, I saw colors. Purple, blue. I was like, what is happening? Now I'm in my crown chakra in my third eye. Then I started seeing green and orange. Now I'm in my heart chakra, my solar plexus, where your wisdom comes from, your sacral, where your creativity. People associate the sacral with sex, with sexual energy. Yeah, but sexual energy is where ideas are born. It's not just that base carnal, oh, we want to reproduce. That's the best part of it probably for a lot of people. But it really is about where your creativity comes from, you know, and where your genius comes from. And so we know when we can harness that sacral energy and do amazing things with it, that is what connects us.
We are almost at the end of the interview,
Yes.
you know, this conversation. It's amazing, you know.
You are amazing. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, me too. I want us to go a little bit back into the system in the US.
Yes.
In order to get some people down here, because
Yeah.
people are working the 9-to-5 jobs. People are not making so much money, $25,000, $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
They're going through all this stuff, discrimination, racism. You know, let's talk about what you were doing back, you know, in the US and how you were able to leave that behind, prepare yourself to embark on that journey.
Yes. Well, the part that people don't talk about is, see how the birds are flying straight in a row? That's a sign. These are patterns. The birds give us patterns as well. So as far as the states go, I remember when I was coming to the continent, I knew I wanted to leave. And I wasn't working at the time. As a matter of fact, I think I might have been getting unemployment at the time. You know, when you get unemployment, you work and then you lose your job. The job will let you go because of the pandemic. They was letting people go. And I had just started this job as an investigator. And they let people go. And I remember thinking, okay, what can I do? Because I need more money coming in. So I started doing online businesses. I was doing like Poshmark, eBay, Amazon. I love to find beautiful things and upcycle them. So I was doing that. And I've always been into fashion. So when I did that, that was extra money coming in. And I was able to make, like I would buy something for $4 and I'd sell it for $100 because it's a designer item that people underestimated and I take it and sell it. So I was flipping items. Then they wanted people to vote. So they had an opportunity for you to go and register people to vote. And even though I was not going to vote in that last election because I knew it was two sides of the same coin, but some of us fell for it. Now we sorry. That's a whole nother story. But I said people have a right to say whether they want to vote or not. And I'm going to go and register those names. That was extra money. So when all of this money was coming in, I was saving my money. That is how I got my money to leave. I bought my tickets one way. I didn't buy round trip tickets.
Really?
People waste time spending how I'm gonna get this money. You don't have to waste time on that. You buy a one-way ticket to each destination, then you just make sure you have your money to get back.
So it's a one-way for you. You don't think of going back to the States?
No. When I went from Ghana, I bought a one-way ticket to Ghana, one-way ticket to Ghana to Sierra Leone to Gambia. The only thing I had to worry about was getting from Gambia back home. Most people would have tried to do round-trip tickets and wasting money. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And of course, I was not flying first class. You have to be willing to make sacrifices. And sometimes you would be a little uncomfortable, but I wanted to be able to afford for my son and I to go. So I'm paying for two people. If I can pay for two, I know they can pay for one. You know, save your money, find a way to save your money. The other thing people don't realize is when you have a job, they only give you a 2-week vacation, depending on where you work. For a lot of people, you spending 2-3 days traveling. So they look at it as being so far away. They rather would go to Mexico or Puerto Rico or someplace closer because they can get the time in. When you have a job, they are restricting you. They are still controlling how you move.
You're not free.
And if they know you leave the country, they will demand that you be vaccinated before you come back to the job. So if they can't get you to do it before you go, they will demand on when you come back, you have to prove that you have this vaccination.
Wow.
So they were trying to force people. But I knew when I first heard the announcement, I thought of The Walking Dead. Literally, I was like, this is like Zombieland. And they were like, be quiet, you're gonna cause a panic. I said, no. Somebody wrote about this in the 80s that this was gonna happen now. That something was gonna be released from China into the world, and it was gonna be this pandemic. And it was like, shh, they quiet me, don't talk about it, you know, you're gonna upset people. And sure enough, I said, they're gonna use this as a reason to stop people from traveling, stop people from voting, stop them from getting medical care, and stop them from employment. I knew it, and that is exactly what happened.
Do you think it's going to be more difficult as time goes on for our brothers and sisters in the diaspora to even relocate to the continent of Africa?
Oh, absolutely. I was just talking to a friend 2 days ago. My girlfriend said the whole sky was yellow. There was a fire in Canada, and all of the fumes had carried over to the U.S., and they were locked down. Don't go outside. They closed the schools, all of this. I was talking to another friend. They passed a law and they let out all the people from the mental hospitals because their government refuses to pay for it. So now you got people walking up on you with switchblades talking about you trying to kill me. What? Who releases people that need mental health services into the community with no support? You're putting everybody at danger. Absolutely, and they release them into rich communities. You know, that's not good, but that's what they did.
Let's talk
so
about
people are scared.
Homelessness in America.
Oh, it's real. It's real, and it's coming from wealthy people as well, you know, because I remember when I left, the reason why I had even moved to Pennsylvania from New York was because they had Brownstones were going for $500,000. $500,000.
What is brownstone?
A brownstone is like a tall tenement building like you see Bill Cosby family lived in, that kind of brownstone area community. Those houses was then going for $1 million. How can the average person, yes, absolutely. How can the average person afford this? And why would you want to spend that for no place to park, no swimming pool, no yard, you don't even have a little patch of green in front of your house? But they have you competing, thinking, taking out loans, working 24 hours. I was working 2 jobs. I always had another job. I never had one job.
Really?
Always had another
job. And then
job.
how much were you making a year back then?
Oh boy, I'd say the most I probably made on one job was about $65,000 on one, and that wasn't including the little side hustles, maybe $10,000 here, $15,000 by the end of the year, and that was not a lot of money. It wasn't a lot of money. I still had a car note, you know, I was still renting. I might be renting a big house, but I was still renting, and when I did buy a house, I had a house with my ex-husband, you know, so, and then when you part, you know, incomes get split. So that's a whole nother thing. It's not easy. It's not easy. People think it's easy. It's not.
That's not what we think it is.
Not at all. Not at all. Because you don't see the struggle. You don't see the prejudice. You don't understand that when you get to a certain part in your job, there's a clamp put on you. You ain't going but so far. And if you do, what do you have to sacrifice? Your integrity, right? Can you live with yourself? Can you look yourself in the mirror, doing the things you've done to get to where you are? Who did you sacrifice along the way? These are things that you have to answer in the next life for, right? When you get to them pearly gates, can you look your creator in the face and say, I'm proud of the person that you made me to be? Or I lived the life that you designed for me. And many of us can't do that. Absolutely is. It's propaganda. Propaganda has done that to make you think, you know, you can get the American dream. But they don't tell you the American dream have 3 Ks in it. America, KKK. They don't include that part. And they don't tell you that that dream is not for you. So we have Americans that are angry, some that say, how could you leave America and go to Africa? You know, and I have indigenous heritage. We have people that really are from the Americas, but what we try to explain is that it was all part of one. And since I've been here on the continent, my indigenous ancestors have come to me. I've seen them in my meditations.
Wow.
So whether I'm in Africa, I'm in America, I'm still connected to my ancestors because they know the connection is here. It all started here. Whether you're there, yes, you can be indigenous.
Send a final message for the people watching you.
Come. Take a leap. Don't believe everything you've been told. Get your feet on the ground and see for yourself, because we've been lied to. And when you discover those lies, your heart, you're going to open your heart and say, wow, how could I believe this? How did I let them fool me? You know, you can't believe everything you read. You can't believe everything you've been told. You got to know for yourself. And if you go within, you will get the answers.
I like that. Now, how do people reach out to you? How do people get you? Because you're hard to find.
I am all over social media. On YouTube, I am AnjaAfreeca, AFREECA 2020. I'm on TikTok as AnjaAfreeca. I also have a spiritual channel on YouTube called Spirit Knocks for Brooklyn Mosaic. So I talk about the whole journey, the meditations, the breakthroughs, the divinations, how you discover your spiritual abilities. I'm on Facebook as Andrea Martin, Reading, PA, you know, but you will find me, I'm on everything. And I'm sure you will put the links in the description. And I'm available if anyone has questions about the journey. And just embrace it. Know that everything I talked about is not as much about me as it is about you. Because we all have this in us. We are just not listening. We are not following our intuition. We are not using discernment. Follow your intuition and your answers will be there for you. Get your feet on the ground.
I like that.
Yes.
Guys, this is an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you so much. I wish we could talk more, but time may not permit us. I'm going to leave all her details in the description and also on the screen. Reach out to her, you know, even for consultation, you'd say.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. You're having a, you know, a separate mind. You don't know to move back. What do you need to do? What not to do? She's been on the ground, and she'll be a best person to advise you on a few things, even your spirituality, you know. So reach out to her, and if you guys are, you know, watching this video for the first time, don't forget to like the video, share, and subscribe. YouTube said 89% of you guys watching the video did not subscribe. You like the video, why don't you subscribe? Please subscribe and comment down below. Let's get the engagement going. And thank you so much for watching this amazing video. And without further ado, can we say bye-bye to them?
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for the book. I forgot to say that. She gave me a gift.
Oh, you are so funny.
I think there's only three people in my life who have ever known you as the third person.
Oh, wow.
So is still a message?
There's a message with that number 3.
So that is good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.